Welcome to We Get Real AF, everybody. I'm Sue Robinson.
And I'm Vanessa Alava. Thank you for joining us and welcome to our first legitimate YouTube video.
Yeah.
This is really exciting. We have obviously our audio recording, but we're officially integrating video into our mix. And we want to give a shout out to our associate producer Mitchell Machado, for helping us get everything coordinated. This is, again, something that we really wanted to integrate this year. So we're officially up and running.
Yes. Thank you so much, Mitchell. And thank you, everybody, for watching us today. We have had the We Get Real AF podcast for 1 year now. Our 1 year anniversary was June 30th. And so excited for all the amazing women that we've had on the show, for the incredible topics. We have released, Vanessa, if you can believe it, 75 episodes in the past 12 months.
We've been busy. To say the very least.
We're tired.
Yeah.
Tired but happy.
So excited. We're just thrilled with the response, the caliber of badass women we've had on the show, the growth that we've seen for We Get Real AF and with each other working together. It's just been an amazing journey. And I'm so glad that we're on this ride together, Sue.
Me too. Me too. It's been so fun. And I've learned so much about podcasting and also just about all these incredible technologies. And I just have to give a shout out to our little team because we are small but mighty. Within the first 3 months of our podcast launching, we were recognized by Podcast Magazine as the top new technology podcast to check out. And we also were a top finalist in the Quill Awards for podcasters. So kudos to us and to all the amazing women who've made the show really as great as it is. So
absolutely. And, the Quill Awards is really special because people actually had to go and submit a vote. And that just really resonated with us because we have a following that really showed up for us. So thank you so much. Thank you for the support.
Absolutely. So with all that being said, you guys, please stop and subscribe to the podcast and leave us some love and a comment and a rating on Apple, iTunes, wherever you listen to your podcast. We really, really appreciate that. It makes a big difference to us. And in our second year, we have some really exciting things coming up. We are launching our own media production company, Mic Drop Creative.
Yes. So excited for that. That has been just brewing for the last a little bit here. A lot of soul searching went into that, and just love creating content. So the podcast has really informed those decisions. So we're officially full-time entrepreneurs with Mic Drop Creative and founders of our own little startup. So this is full circle all the way around. So excited to be finally announcing that on the show.
I know, it's real. It's real. And we're going to be producing all kinds of content that is inspiring and uplifting and empowering, in particular to women and girls, because you guys know that that's our mission with the We Get Real AF podcast, but also just really uplifting and creative and inspiring content in general. And we do want to continue to educate people, including ourselves, about these emerging technologies. Vanessa, I was just listening to the most recent episode that we did with John Bazell and Kathy Hackle on their book, The Augmented Workforce. And, they were talking about how important it is. And the reason that they wrote that book was so that everybody can be part of this conversation about where these incredible emerging technologies and scientific developments are taking us. And, the last thing we want is for people who are just the coders and just the experts to be the only ones weighing in on where these technologies take humanity. So whether you're a doctor or a teacher or a stay-at-home mom or whoever, we are going to continue to bring you great content that helps you understand emerging tech on the podcast in the coming year as well.
So. Absolutely. And just having them on the show is so aligned with what our mission is with We Get Real AF in so many ways, because to your point, Sue, we want things that we talk about with technology, all of these terms, the jargon, to be digestible and relatable to where you're not just saying them, not knowing what they mean, that they actually we're giving meaning to those things that you hear about and read about, and you're seeing how it affects your life. It's not just like this ambiguous thing out there. All of these things have an effect on you and an effect on your family, your friends, your future. So absolutely, whether we like it or not, or whatever, what have you, like, it's important to know knowledge is power. So happy to be here bringing that to you every week.
So with that being said, let's talk about some of the things that are going on in technology and science news right now that impact all of us. And I'll kick us off because I think this is really, really interesting. Vanessa and I have talked about TikTok recently, and the fact that, and I have some notes here, TikTok is able, they recently gave themselves permission, and in order to continue using the app, you had to accept this, that they can access over 50 kinds of information about you, everything from your age, gender, email, to details about your mobile device, the content of your messages, tracking about your online activities, even the contents of your clipboard, your eye movements, your surroundings, and objects in those surroundings. It's a lot. TikTok is giving itself access to all this data about you. And I think that's pretty unprecedented and pretty interesting. What do you think, Vanessa?
Well, my feelings on this, Sue, because as we've been evolving as a company and as a brand, we've toyed with the idea of joining TikTok several times. And I've always been so hesitant, to the point where we've talked about it and I've never officially downloaded the app because I've been so scared. And it kind of went back to an article I read, goodness, about a year and a half ago. And it was basically a hacker that writes for like Wired and all of these things. And he was kind of explaining the back end of the app and the permissions that it has and the capabilities it has. And at the end of the day, the long and the short of it was, the things that it is allowed to do, the only reason it's there is basically for nefarious intent. There's no other reason for it to be there. So it's just scared the shit out of me. I'm like, absolutely. I'm like, no. So, how I feel about it. Like, it's just one of those weird things to me. And I think what's wild is that it's so widely used by such a diverse age range. And it scares me with the little kids, like, right? Like, you have little kids using this and you just don't know what's on the other end. And it freaks me out.
How can a 13-year-old even legally give permission for their data to be released into the ether? And, and they're actually sharing it with advertisers, marketers, and analytics vendors. So basically it could be anybody, right? And there's also the concern that this is a Chinese company. And it's so funny because I was talking with my husband about this recently. He's an attorney, and he said, the next level of personal identification or two-factor authentication is they're talking about retinal scans, but here's TikTok that's collecting an entire database of people's eyes, using their app. And while their servers are based in the US and they say that they've done that to protect that information, it is not clear whether Chinese law or US law applies to how that data is released or to whom it is released. So my youngest daughter actually deleted her TikTok account when that thing popped up, that give us permission or get out of the app, because her spidey sense said, this isn't good. So guys, just be aware of that.
And, at the end of the day, like, this podcast, this show, like, we are talking about what's in the news. We want to inform you, but we're also giving our opinion, right? So we invite anyone from TikTok that wants to come on and have a conversation and kind of debunk all of these things. Come on to We Get Real AF. We want to have a real conversation with you. So I just want to throw that out there. At the end of the day, we're not trying to say bad things about people or their technology. At the end of the day, it's not the technology that's bad. It's certain people using the technology that makes it bad. So, these are just our opinions. We're the moms of daughters, and I have also a baby boy now. And I think that anybody that has children, like, you just think of things differently. There are even movies I can't watch now. Like, it has a kid involved. Like, I can't see certain things. It's just one of those, life growing things.
So just ask the questions, right? Just educate yourself and ask the questions. Don't just automatically say yes to whatever the apps ask you to do. So, all right.
Well, that's a good segue, because there was an article about the big techs, Congress wanting to do some more, I don't know, I would say mandates on what they can and can't do. And there's some big changes coming up that they want to kind of put onto these tech companies. Some of them, I agree with. Some of them I'm like, that's kind of infringing on, our, society, like being a capitalist country and growing your business. So I just wanted to kind of chat about that really quick. So there's like 5 things that they're trying to bring legislation to. So they want to break up the 4 major companies. And when we say 4 major companies, we're talking about Facebook, Google, Amazon, and Apple. Right. All of those are household names. We use them every day in our in our daily lives, actually, with the apps and, in our conversations, et cetera. So one of them is they want to break them up, from owning like dominant platforms at the same time that it affects other lines of business that they have, where it's creating conflicts of interest. So that's one of them. The second one is crossing over. And this is how I'm reading a USA Today article where it says lawmakers are proposing enabling users on dominant platforms to communicate directly with those on rival services. So it's making it easier for different companies to succeed, and not just having these conglomerate companies making all the money, basically.
Mhm.
So I understand where they're going with it, but I'm also saying, well, if I had, if I worked my ass off and I have this like big company and I'm wanting to continue to grow it. And again, this is thinking I haven't done anything that's been borderline, right, morally or ethically. That's infringing on me, right, on my rights as a company. So I thought that was interesting. What are your thoughts there, Sue? I'm
I
interested.
think that we've always had antitrust laws in the US in the spirit of capitalism, right? And in the spirit of allowing the little guy to have a shot. So I
Yeah.
think it's important that that spirit continues in our technological age to apply to huge, huge tech companies. I particularly love the idea of being able to break out of an ecosystem to get to another ecosystem. And then it comes down to what kind of service you're getting within that ecosystem. And is that
Mm-hmm.
provider where you're going to align your time and your loyalties? So I think it's good. I think checks and balances are always good, especially with things like emerging technologies that are evolving so rapidly. It's got to be really difficult for legislation to keep up with that.
Yeah. And again, to police it in some type of way. So
Mhm.
there's another one that no more favoritism. So basically, it's going to prohibit these tech companies, if this passes, this legislation, from favoring their own products and services over the competitors on their own platforms, which it's almost like, I look at it as like even voting, right? Voting in school, like you can put a vote in for yourself and as opposed to voting for someone else. So I'm like, okay, I don't, some of things are borderline for me. Making it hard to merge, and snap up different competitors' companies. They're going to make it more difficult and have more stipulations there. And then again, dialing up the enforcement with antitrust laws.
Mhm.
I'm definitely for that, right? Like there's got to be some type of guiding principle for these organizations. It can't just be the Wild West. And I think that's kind of how they've operated for a long time. So that's kind of why you see them almost so offended when they're in the courtroom. They're like, oh my gosh, like this wasn't the case several years ago, but I mean, it's new. And as things become bigger and better and greater, so do all of the potential risks that come with that. So anyway,
Absolutely.
it was an
Well, and
interesting article.
very interesting. And I think one of the differentiators for modern technology and particularly artificial intelligence is when you mentioned legal stipulations being put in place to prevent companies from favoring their own items, their own
Yeah.
products, is
Yeah.
because we get our information about products from the same ecosystem that we're getting all of our other information. So if I want to sell you my particular brand of X, then maybe my at-home smart device only makes those recommendations of my
Hmm.
product to you. So I
It's
can
a great point.
understand, why somebody has to put a check on that, because otherwise, how do you find out that there even are competitors out there, or how do you order them? If it's really difficult to order them, then that other company never has a chance, because you're again trapped within this information and commercial ecosystem that is controlled by one entity.
That's a great point. However, again, it goes back to it being such a gray area. So there has to
Mhm.
be a way for you to promote your own services without you getting in trouble, right? Like
Mhm.
that's the whole point of business is that you want to, showcase what you're doing and promote yourself. But to your point too, with the types of AI that we have now that know how we want, what we want, how we want it, when we want it, and you're in these little ecosystems, how do you give way for those smaller companies to succeed and to be able to sell their products in an equal and fair manner?
Yep. So very interesting, very cool. Okay, let's move on to science since we've been talking tech. I think this is really cool. Happy news that was reported by The Guardian, which is a news source out of the UK. There is a simple blood test that can detect more than 50 kinds of cancer before they show any signs or symptoms in patients. And it's showing so much promise that they're actually going to be piloting the screening test here in the US starting this fall. The NHS is going to be testing it. The test was developed by a US based company called Grail. And what it does is it looks for chemical changes in fragments of genetic code that leak from tumors into your bloodstream. And
Mm,
it can detect things like ovarian cancer, pancreatic cancer, some blood cancers, esophageal, and head and neck cancer. So cancers that have traditionally or historically been very, very difficult to find or identify, diagnose until they've advanced to a point where they're also really difficult to cure. So I love that. I think this is really exciting. It's again, a simple blood test.
that's amazing. That's amazing. And I think it's obviously, unfortunately, um, a lot of us have been touched by that, whether that be family, friends, whatever. And it hits home, it's relatable, and it's something that, because it's affected so many people, I'm shocked that it's taken this long to get to this technology, right?
Mhm.
So that's amazing. When is that officially out, like to be able to be used?
They're starting to clinically test it now. Let me read here. Yeah, it's a screening test, and they're piloting it, I believe, in the UK now. And this fall, they'll be piloting it through the NHS here in the US.
I
So,
bet there's going to be
and
a
they're going to,
long list, a
yeah,
long
well, and
line.
they're starting with people who are higher at risk, so people over 50, and then perhaps people who have genetic risks of cancer in their
Hmm.
families. So,
Hmm.
really exciting though. I love seeing breakthrough things like that, where it's just so much promise and gives so many people hope.
Absolutely. Yeah, I love that. Well, kind of shifting to hopeful technology and science, I found a really cool article. But again, this is US news. It's called A Smart Cane, bringing technological advances to the visually impaired. And since obviously accessibility and diversity is a huge part of our show, I thought that was appropriate to talk about it. But basically, it is a white stick that the visually impaired use to get from place to place, and it's been given a high tech makeover. It's called the Smart Cane, and the website is called WeWalk. If you'd like to take a look, but basically, there's an attachment that attaches to the cane, and it helps detect obstacles. It pairs with your smartphone. So you have navigation that basically, it tells you where to go. If you're telling your phone where you want to get, you go from point A to point B. So it's got that GPS navigation, what's around you, so depending on where you are and where your stick hits, because it's connected to your iPhone and your GPS, it'll give you a little bit of information about the things around you. It'll assist with public transportation. There's obviously the voice assistant, like I just mentioned. So a lot of really cool technology. And this is coming out of a person named Kursat Seylan, and it's a Turkish inventor. He was born blind and had an accident a few years ago that left him struggling to navigate while pulling luggage and checking GPS and all the things. So he created WeWalk. So check it out, tech company. And you can get one if you're interested for about $600. So very interesting, really,
Interesting.
really cool. I think anything that obviously is a tech for good, we promote and we
Hmm.
advocate.
Very innovative. It's interesting as you were saying that and describing that product, Vanessa. I was thinking about seeing eye dogs, and if technology will eventually potentially replace, companion animals specifically for purposes of the visually impaired.
Hmm.
I don't know, but it's wonderful that technology is being used in a way that, can help people who are visually impaired navigate. And that's sounds like a really smart invention. So,
Absolutely. And as usual, we will have all of these articles linked in the show notes. So if you're interested in learning more, feel free to check those out and click on it. And obviously, we're on YouTube now. This is a new thing. We'll have it in the YouTube show notes as well for you. Anything
Yes.
else, Sue, that you have?
I have one more, and this is because our very first We Get Real AF podcast episode was with Christina Hernandez, who's a systems engineer at JPL with NASA. And she was working on the Mars rover Perseverance, which we know launched in 2020. And I just read this week that it has now completed its first 100+ days on the planet
Yay.
Mars. Yeah, and it's sent back over 100,000 images, including, and this is historic for this generation, one selfie. So Percy took a selfie and sent it back, which I thought was kind of cute. Anyway, and now the Perseverance is going to be venturing away from its landing spot and going on an actual scientific exploration where it's collecting materials and rocks and things in a crater and in a couple of different craters around the red planet to try to identify if there may perhaps at one point in history been life on Mars. So very
I love
exciting.
it. I
Yeah.
love it. And talk about humanizing technology. If you're having a
Yes.
robot do a selfie, I think we're personifying the
Exactly.
robot. That's
Yes.
awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. And if you haven't had an opportunity to check that episode out, it was our very, very first episode. Fantastic guest, Christina Hernandez with NASA's JPL. But yeah, really, really exciting. And it's just when you think about it, you were just talking, and I know we talk about cool technology all the time, but you're like, yeah, robot sending pictures down from Mars and it's been there for, 120 days. Like that's crazy. It's just crazy. I love having that still magical moment when you're like, man, we're getting to experience this as humans right now and document it. That's awesome.
Even trying to imagine that it takes 6 months to get to the planet Mars because it's so far away
Mm-hmm.
and we're getting
Mm-hmm.
images back from that planet. I mean, that's super exciting and super cool. So these are the kinds of things we want to bring you guys, just for the rest of us who maybe aren't full-time getting to do technology and scientific exploration in our day jobs, but are really interested in these topics. We want to bring you just a few highlights from the news. And again, Mic Drop Creative is our brand new company. We'll be creating lots of great media content around STEM and STEAM topics, as well as other empowering content for women and girls. And just join us for the journey in year 2. We're so excited to be continuing on with the podcast and creating other types of media. We also have a cool event coming up this fall we'll be talking about to empower women and girls looking to get into technology fields. So we'll be sharing more about that in coming episodes. But thank you all for joining us in year 1. It's been amazing, and we look forward to continuing on.
Ditto. Thank you. Thank you again for all the support, and just, yeah, keep your ear out for us. Like we have so many cool and exciting things happening literally by the week. Sue and I almost have to rein in our ideas because our brains are operating at like lightning speed. And we're like, okay, we're only 2 people with help of like amazing people trying to help us succeed. And we can only do so much, at a time. So I would just say, yeah, stick with us and follow us, and please engage with us. Like comment below and let us know what you want to hear about, more, less of, who you want to have on the show. Like we want that interaction. We want to bring you what you want to hear. So help us create the content that you want to take part in.
Absolutely. And I just want to give one last shout out, and that is to Sam Mclean with Mclean Sounds. He's been our
Yes.
awesome sound designer since day one. So again, Mitchell Machado helping us out here today with our brand new YouTube channel, and Sam Mclean. Thank you both for making this possible. Thanks, guys.
You guys rock. Thank you.